the other thing about worry is that worriers have a tremendous fear of failure. And that they think that failure is completely unacceptable, that you can never fail, you should never fail. Failure is fatal, that if you fail, it means that you're a total loser as a human being. It's interesting, in high school or college, we never take a course called Failure 101, which is how to fail gracefully and how to turn failure into opportunity. But if you really think about it, failure is inevitable in a lot of areas of your life. You'll have a lot of failures in life. In fact, a famous Russian poet, Joseph Brodsky, gave a commencement address at Dartmouth College years ago, and he said, "It's unfortunate that your great Ivy League education does not prepare you for boredom." And think about boredom as one of the things you have to cope with. But anyway, failure is an inevitable part of life, but worriers worry that they will fail. And they think that failure is horrible. They would label themselves as a failure or whatever. And what we know from the research on kids is that kids can divide up on two extremes. When they confront failure, one group of kids, when they confront failure, become helpless. They give up. They think, I'm stupid, I'm not good at this, I can't do anything at all. In other words, they label themselves as failures. Other kids, when they confront failure, they say, oh, now that's interesting. I didn't look at it that way. I really have to try harder. I have to think about a different way of solving the problem. Those kids become persistent in the face of failure. So you have kids who become helpless in the face of failure and kids who become persistent. If you think about, if you're a worrier and you think that if I fail, then I have to give up because I'm a loser and I'm stupid and nothing's going to work out, then you're going to worry about failing in the future. On the other hand, if you have this adaptive, persistent view of being empowered, I'm going to have a challenge, and if I don't succeed, I'll try to figure out another way of looking at it, I'll put my effort into it, or maybe I'll change my goals, or maybe I'll learn from the experience, or maybe I'm not that good at that, but I'm good at something else. That's a very, very different way of looking at failure. In fact, one way of looking at failure is thinking about failure as information. I remember when I was first learning cognitive therapy, and I had David Burns as a supervisor. David Burns wrote the book Feeling Good years ago. And I would come in with my narcissism, and I would present to David Burns the superb case conceptualization that I worked on. And I did this a couple of times, and then David said, why are you wasting my time with supervision? Tell me about your failures, your frustrations, the things that are not working. And that's when I began learning. In other words, I began learning by sharing the vulnerability, the mistakes, the roadblocks, the resistance, my own resistance, all of that. Failure is information. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to grow. In fact, there's a book by a historian of engineering and design called Success Through Failure. So you need to think about what your attitudes are and your theories are about failure. If you think that if you fail, you're a failure, then you're going to be very, very afraid of trying new things, and you'll worry in order to make sure you succeed, which of course will make it almost impossible for you to do things. You'll end up procrastinating, you'll end up avoiding. On the other hand, if you normalize failure and you look at it as a learning experience and as a challenge, you won't need to worry as much because you'll think, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll handle it. One thing we know about worriers, now this is, to me, a fascinating area of research. When you worry, the part of the brain that is activated is the cortical parts of the brain, which are your thinking parts of the brain. Because when we worry, we're thinking. We're thinking, what if this, what if that? Let me see if I can do this, I can do that. It's all about thinking when you're worried. And And in fact, the research actually shows that when you're worried, you're temporarily suppressing the physiological anxious arousal. Now think about it. When you're actively worried, what if this, what if that, what can I do, what can I do, what's the information, what's the way of solving the problem? When you're worried, you're actually temporarily less anxious. Worry temporarily blocks anxious arousal. So it's actually reinforced by blocking anxious arousal. And this theory of worry is the emotional avoidance theory of worry, that people worry in order to temporarily suppress anxious arousal. However, after they go through their what if, and they stop that kind of thinking it through, later the anxious arousal comes out as free-floating anxiety, muscle tension, gastroenterological, disturbances, irritable bowel syndrome, sweating, all that kind of physiological arousal. It's almost as if the arousal incubates or kind of goes underground temporarily. It's like worry is like a drink. You worry in order to suppress the arousal, and then the arousal comes back later. What we know from our research on worry and the research of other colleagues is that people who worry have very negative views of emotion. They think that if they feel anxious, their anxiety does not make sense. They think that if they feel anxious, their anxiety is going to go on forever. They think that their anxiety is dangerous. They focus on their anxiety. They focus on their sensations when they feel anxious. They think that other people don't have the same kind of anxiety that they do. They feel ashamed or guilty about their emotions. They think I should only feel one way. So one of the things that I find interesting is that that we found that people who worry or people who ruminate, who keep going over and over and over and over trying to figure what's the answer, have a very difficult time handling mixed feelings. They have a hard time handling ambivalence. So somebody will say, well, I met this person, I've been going out now for a couple of years, and I'm thinking about getting married, but I'm not so sure because I have mixed feelings. I have mixed feelings. In other words, they think they shouldn't have mixed feelings. They should only feel one way. And I say, maybe the reason that you have mixed feelings is that now you know the person. So you probably have mixed feelings about yourself. You have mixed feelings about your friends, your parents, even your kids or whatever it might be. In other words, mixed feelings, having ambivalent feelings may just simply be that you have more information and you know the pros and cons. But worriers or people who ruminate, they want certainty and they want the answer, as opposed to saying, yeah, there are a lot of things that are good, some things negative, some things neutral, being able to tolerate mixed feelings. In fact, we actually found that in looking at what predicts whether people are relatively happily married, one is, do you feel that your partner validates your emotion? I can understand how you feel, that must be hard for you. Do you feel like you can express your emotions with your partner? Do you blame your partner? Not surprisingly, if you blame your partner, you're not happy. But we also found that a good predictor of feeling relatively happy in your marriage is the ability to tolerate mixed feelings. It's not that your partner now is making you happy all the time. It's now that you've accepted things about your partner and he or she has accepted things about you.